wasn't gonna make a video today, but I got done reading and decided I think I got enough junk put together that I can give you a little entertainment for the day. First, as it says, I had a couple of did not finishes. Afterworld by Debbie Urbanski. I had hoped for this one because this was AI put in charge, and people said, it said, we need to get people off the planet. And it does this by uploading them into some simulation or other. So like the last person on the planet is being overlooked by this one artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence apparently falls in love with her. Well, I just never got that far to find out because the less than 100 pages, it was involved with too much AI file talk, and even when it was from her perspective, there was some kind of minutia and detail of what she was recording that I just didn't do anything for me. There was some, for example, a page and a half of here's some words you can't use, and just individual words that you're not supposed to. I just couldn't get into it. Tried it for a day, couldn't do it. Leading right into this was a little disappointing because I like Adrian Tchaikovsky, mostly because of one book I read of his. Is his service model. Robot kills and then kind of gets set free or something. It starts out kind of interesting because you have this dialogue, inner and outer, of this robot servicing this master that it accidentally kills, or did it accidentally kill? That seems to be the mystery there. And going back and forth with the other artificial intelligences seems kind of interesting at first, but then it starts to grate on you because it just makes everything extra slow, the way they talk back and forth to each other to confirm this, try this again, no, you're denied, here's why, we'll try again, and back and forth. And it's kind of we're robots, but we're very naive, so I don't know, just go over here. I just had high hopes, but didn't hold me, didn't make my 100 pages. But Adrian Tchaikovsky did write this. I have a whole video on this elder race. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. This is a real good book, real short one too. But maybe if this book had been the size of this book, this would have been a good book. Maybe you could have hurried things along a bit. That might have been the problem. What I did finish, though, I just got this week. This is actually a sequel to, can I reach it? Yes, I can. This was written in 2006 or something. The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil. The singularity is nearer. So this is futurism. It might qualify what people call transhumanism. Mostly it can, I think most people look at futurism as, well, that's some far-fetched crap we're never going to do. But the thing is, a lot of stuff that's in here is actually really happening. Just maybe in some places not as fast as you would like. But I'm not going to go in here in terrible depth, but for example, two things I really like that stuck out. So page 55. This is really neat for your reading and for writers out there, a little bit of information. If there are 10 word-like ideas in a given sentence, the number of possible relationships among subsets of them is 2 to the 10th power minus 1, or 1,023. If there are 50 such ideas in a paragraph, that's 1.12 quadrillion possible contextual relationships among them. Although the vast majority of these are relevant, the demands of remembering the context for an entire chapter or book by brute force spiral rapidly out of control. And this is why as here, GPT-4 forgets things you told it earlier in the conversation, and why I can't write a novel with a consistent logical plot. It's talking about current AI trends. I thought that was pretty cool. So look at the power of our language, that you can get 1.12 quadrillion possible contextual relationships in a paragraph. What do we got here real quick? Page 71. what was here? So DARPA working on long-term project called Neural Engineer System Design, which aims to create an interface that can connect to 1 million neurons for recording and can stimulate 100,000 neurons. The agency has funded several different research programs to achieve this, such as Brown University team working to create sand-sized neurograins that can be implanted in the brain, interfacing with neurons and with one another to create a cortical intranet. Ultimately, brain-computer interfaces will be essentially non-invasive, which will likely entail harmless nanoscale electrodes inserting into the brain through the bloodstream. So currently, there are brain interfaces. They have to do with people who have crippling problems. And in artwork for things like cyberpunk, it looks pretty cool. Got these electrodes and things attached to your mind, but in reality, you see a poor guy in a wheelchair and he's got this giant box inserted into his skull. It looks horrible. There is Neuralink, which unfortunately messed up a bunch of monkeys, but they got beyond that. I don't know if they're being charged with anything for it. But one man currently has it in. It's a little invasive. There is a surgery required. And with his mind, he can play video games with it. So you're kind of getting there, but this, even that won't be for me and you. If you can make injectable, you get a sand, I'm reaching for my phone, that's what I'm recording with. So you take a look at your phone and make it something so tiny that you can inject it into your bloodstream and it knows where to go and attach to pieces of your brain. And now you have the power, but way more powerful and faster than your phone on your mind. So the problem there is, of course, inflammation. You're attaching things to your brain, but they have to be benign. And two, people might not want to keep it there. Maybe they don't feel safe, so they want to have a safe way to remove it. And three, and this is a big one, brain hacking. It's all fun and games to you, I can think to my friends and have Terminator vision and be able to do things like play video games with my mind or close my eyes and I feel like I'm walking around in a virtual world until something happens to your brain because someone broke into it. There has to be that kind of separation or it's just not going to work. It's not going to play out. No one's going to take something that's going to damage them directly. If something happens to my computer, my phone, well, I'm okay. Might have to check my bank account or whatever, but I'm okay. So we want our cake and to eat it too. We want to get in there and experience things directly to our mind. But we have to have safety for our mind or no one's going to go for this and we'll just be haptic, really. Atlas 71, page 135. What do we got here? I didn't bookmark these, I'm sorry. What was this one about? Life extension stuff. Phase 1 is basically what you can do now, diets and supplement, make you a little bit healthier. Phase 2, this starts going on about putting AI into biotechnology, and that is starting to work. It's in beginning stages though, but by 2030, you might have something more direct that can very directly stop any sort of age-related diseases like heart failure and kidney failure and things like that. Right now, I mentioned the other day in another video, you can go get a thymus rejuvenation, and it's probably the one big thing right now that seems to have a fountain of youth effect to it, with people, their gray hair turns brown again, and they all of a sudden they're out doing sports again and they look better and their skin looks better. And then the problem is now letting them age again and doing it again and see if it has the same effect. So that's going on there. Beyond that, things start to get a little speculative here about backing up minds, which, okay, but it's not me. We're trying to preserve me. And I don't know about uploading, because everything you are is stuck on this brain. So how do you get you off your brain. I think there's like more mathematical proof for faster than light travel than there is for uploading the way we see it in fiction. I love uploading in fiction, but its reality is a whole other thing, and I have yet to see anything that convinces me that somehow we're going to separate me from my brain, and when I get to a new container, is it still going to be the original me when I get there? I'm not seeing that one myself. 172 to 173. Don't worry, I won't take too much time here for you. This had to do with, well, here's a little bit of current nanotechnology, if you want to call it that, where you get things, atomic scale needles smaller than the wavelength of light that you can permeate into a given surface. So for example, solar panels, to make them more efficient. That's about where we are for nanotechnology. 180 to 181. I think this was vertical farming, which I love so much. Vertical farms. This is growing crops indoors hydroponically, and in another they call it aeroponics, where they replace what water they're using with just a fine mist. But the technology enables it to use 95% less water and 97% less land than a traditional dirt farm. That's amazing. Half the habitable land area of the earth is currently dedicated to farming, so reduce that by 97%. And you're talking about having no real crowding unless you want to go live in a crowded urban area. But that's singularity is near, if you want to go pick that up new from Ray Kurzweil. So I am going to jump right into this book tag. I was tagged by Gavin once again, genre books. This tag was created by, let me read this right, To Read It May Concern. I like that one, that's a good one. And Prose and Petticoats. So this is 8 questions. Number 1, it's called Counting the Days tag. What is a book that excites you because of its cover? So I have 3. This is TBR, by the way. So these are me digging into my immortal TBR. In fact, this was the 3 books I just mentioned were all sitting there in my TBR, though I think Service Model was a new one. So 3 covers I liked. Divas, the Absolute Series by Stuart J. Tanner. I like this. This is the depths of a city, very large technological buildings with something hovering there in the middle. I don't know if that's a ship or an airship of some kind. We're going to find out. So here we have, speaking of transhumanism, that's what this is. Someone is murdered. Dude's got to go find out. Transhumanist cult. Can't wait. That's going to be a good one. And in fact, this is going to be the next thing I read after, probably starting tomorrow. I might start tomorrow. Other 2 covers. This is a cyberpunk book, Machine Killer, D.L. Young. This is first in a series. I didn't know this even existed until I just happened to look it up. Another cityscape there. This one a little more cartoony looking than the other one there. Anything particular? Former cyber criminal Blackburn Maddox is living the well-paid, comfortable life of a corporate salaryman. He thinks his lawless past is behind him. He couldn't be more wrong. So we'll see what goes on there. And then a fantasy book. I believe this is a series of books that retells old stories. So this is a kind of a Robin Hood-ish book, but A Forest of Vanity and Valor by A.P. Beswick in the Levantria series. And that's got a cool cover there, dude. We own a couple weapons there. So that's what I'm going for in terms of covers. Because of the author. Okay, so Cory Doctorow. This is called The Lost Cause, a novel of truth and reconciliation in a polarized society. I think this is, if I recall correctly, something to do with the old versus the young, getting control of the world. I'm excited for this because Doctorow, I've read a few books of his with The Rapture of the Nerds being one of my favorite books. You want something concerning, it's satirical, it does concern some uploading near the end, dystopia, people on Earth not giving up their humanity yet before they go join this simulation cloud heaven type deal above. A real good book, a lot of fun, that book. Because of its premise, The Doors of Sleep by Tim Pratt. Now, Tim Pratt, I could have gone author with him too. He's a very good author. So this dude closes his eyes and goes to sleep. When he wakes up, he's in another world. Some of these worlds are dystopian, some of these are utopias, some of these are technological and whatnot. So he goes to a different world every time he falls asleep. He has no control over it or where he goes, and people are after him for his ability to do that. Sounds good to me. Because of its style. So this is a very long-running series. This is presented by George R. R. Martin. I don't know who, they didn't put another author. Oh, there's a bunch of authors, so this is a conglomeration here. The Wild Cards. This is a superhero series taking a little bit more realistic look at superhero-dom. If you've been watching The Boys on Amazon, it's vaguely something like that. Things are a bit more violent, a bit more sexual. People butt heads that you would hope would team up instead or something. Teams don't always get along very well. This started way back in the 80s. The very first Wild Cards book was the intro. The timeline was was that post or pre? I think it was just post World War II. And this aliens are experimenting with this type of spore that can give you superpowers, but they didn't want to experiment with it on themselves, so they came to Earth and were going to drop this bomb. And well, it does go off. There's a whole wonderful story about this. Let's call it a pre-superhero. He's just called Jet Boy because he was the first person to fly a jet in combat. And he was able to come back and try to prevent the explosion. Well, sorry, he fails. And this spore, primarily over Manhattan, spreads powers to everybody. It is a real good long-running series. There's a few books that's after, I want to say after about after the fifth one, things starting to get a little spotty. So most of the books are actually pretty good, but then there were parts of it are like, it's crazy, really. And then a few books recently I gave a shot at were not good at all. There was a resurgence a while back. It was pretty good, and then it just fell apart completely. But saw this, decided to give it a try. I've enjoyed the series overall, so we're going to give that another go. Because of its influence, I still got the receipt in it. There's a nice used bookstore near me. There's two of them, in fact, but they're about an hour away from me, called Second and Charles. Large stores. And this was sitting there. I journeyed an hour. I was like, I hope I have walked out with nothing before when I make the journey, but in this case I didn't. Olaf Stapleton, Star Maker. This concerns some fella at the turn of the century who, if I'm not mistaken, it's like he just, for whatever reason, his mind goes wandering through the universe. I've heard this called a bit trippy. This is just an original science fiction novel. One aspect of it, I know, he mentions intelligent beings surrounding stars with an artificial gauze that captures all their energy. This was the first mention that I think anyone really knows of Dyson spheres. Years later being called that because physicist Freeman Dyson speculated about it. He was talking more about a cloud of material around a star rather than a solid shell or something. But because of him, they've been called Dyson spheres ever since, and that's the first mention of it in there. Because of its because of its emotional weight. So This is Emperor of Ruin by Django Wexler. This is the third in a series. I've read the other two. This came about from the author because he said there was a discussion about Jedi, Star Wars, and you have, as we find out in the Phantom Menace, sometimes the Jedi will go throughout the galaxy searching for children who show Force talent. They don't kidnap them, but the idea is maybe this doesn't always go as planned. Maybe there's some responsibility to be had. What do you do when things go wrong? So this is a fantasy setting though, but you can tell right off, even if you don't know what I just told you, oh, something very Star Warsy about these people with telekinetic powers and light up swords. And there was in the expanded universe of Star Wars novels these biological invaders called if I'm pronouncing it correct, called the Yuzang Vong. I didn't read those books. I was aware of their existence. And in this, there is an opposing side made up of these very biologically powered beings. The reason there may be emotional weight to this is because there is a brother and sister. Sisters on one team, brothers on the other, and we'll see if they can, they've already fought in the other two books, so we'll see if they can reconcile or what happens to that relationship. Because of its sense of humor, I got nothing. I was looking through all these books. I don't think I got anything on my TBR that's going to have anything to do with being funny, so I had to skip that one. So number 8 is because of its challenge or difficulty, more cyberpunk goodness. This is a big book of cyberpunk. This is 1,000 pages of short stories, so maybe not that difficult. I can pick at it. Oh, that's a brick. And some of these I think are old. There could be some new ones. I do not know. I know there was at least one in here as I flipped through it that I read many years before in the 90s. 1,000 pages of technology and people. What is it called? High Tech, Low Life. So that's really it for me. Like I said, the book I'm reading next is down here. I buried it. I don't know if this goes out in the galaxy. It just mentions something in our solar systems here. We'll see what happens, but a little transhuman adventurism right there. That'll be next. That's it for me. Hope you have it's hot out today. I think there's a heat wave going across the country. Hope you have a nice weekend. Thank you so much. Until next time.